Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome, welcome. I invite you to put where you're zooming in from in the chat if you'd like. It's always fun to see where everybody's coming from. And we'll just get started in a few minutes. There's still people coming in. All right. Well, I will continue admitting people as I talk, but I'm Meg Weston. I'm the founder and host of the Poets Corner, and I welcome you all to our second reading of the month of March. So we're very lucky today to have this program. Mark Burrows will be our host today, and our guest poets are Zeina Azzam, Sara Abou Rashed, and Deema Shehabi. Before we begin, I'm just going to say a few words about upcoming events on the Poets Corner, and then I'll turn it over to Mark. So first of all, our 2026 Camden Festival of Poetry will be here in Camden, Maine, where it's snowing right now, if you would believe it, but won't be in May. I almost guarantee that. Um, it's May 12th through the 16th, and it features as our keynote the poet and essayist Amy Mizuku. Her new book that's just been released is called Night Owl. It's a collection of poems that's just beautiful. You can find it at your local bookstore or on Amazon. There's also a podcast on the Camden Festival of Poetry.org website called Poetry Medicine for the Soul. And on this podcast, I read two of Amy's poems and talk about them. And it might be fun to check out that podcast as well. And maybe it'll encourage you to plan a trip to Camden, Maine in May. But even if you can't, and I know people are here from all over, you can still register for her craft talk on Friday afternoon or her keynote on Saturday, the 16th. You can register for these on the website Camden Festival of Poetry.org. A few more things coming up on the Poets Corner on Sunday, April 12th. We have a reading from the anthology Nature of Our Times. It's a companion to the first ever national nature and wildlife assessment. The anthology includes 210 poets, 12 of whom will be reading their work on the Poets Corner, including the three editors of the anthology. And they'll be talking about what it means to write poetry as sort of an assessment of nature, of our relationship to it, and our future. On Sunday, April 26th, we have a reading with the New York poet, Kevin Pilkington, and he's invited a few of his followers, if you will, a few of us who have taken his wonderful workshops, and they will each, including myself, each read a poem that originated in one of Kevin's workshops. He's teaching again this summer at mainmedia.edu, and you can check out his workshop there. That's a lot of different things. It's a lot to remember, but just visit our website, thepoetscorner.org, and you'll see how to sign up for anything that catches your interest. Today's program is being recorded, so if you missed part of it or if you have friends that have missed any part of it, you will find it on our website in the next couple of days. So on to today's reading. I'm going to introduce Mark and let him introduce our guests. Mark is the co-founder and co-director, along with me, of the Camden Festival of Poetry, which began just 4 years ago. He's a world-renowned scholar and an award-winning translator of Rilke's poetry. And his Rilke reading on the Poets' Corner each December is always our most popular event of the year. You don't want to ever miss it. Mark has just finished the translation of Rilke's Duino Elegies, which will be published later this year. And in the past couple of years, he's had several books published, including a new translation of Rilke's Sonnets to Orpheus, and a book called You Are the Future, Living the Questions with Rainier Maria Rilke, written with Stephanie Dowrick. He's a poet himself, the poetry editor for the journal Spiritus, and he lives here in Camden with his wife, Uda, and his dog, Kaylee, who is as indefatigable. Is that the way to say that word? But it applies to Mark and it applies to Kaylee.
Yeah, thanks.
He's also on the board of advisors for the Poets' Corner, a frequent guest here and host, and my dear friend. So it's a pleasure to turn this program over to Mark at this point.
Thank you so much, Meg. And thanks to all of you who've joined us for this, I think, quite remarkable gathering and an important time for us to broaden, for some of us to broaden our understandings of the world, and for others to hear more deeply how we can face into the realities that we're all living with in these times, but particularly Palestinians and those related to Palestinians. So it's a great honor to have the three of you, Zeina, Deema, and Sara, with us today. And I'll introduce you individually before your readings, beginning with Zeina, who really was sort of the point person to pull this together. So Zeina, thank you for that. Zeina is a Palestinian-American poet, writer, editor, community activist, musician, we're learning, with many, many different talents and skills. She worked in the fields of education and Middle East affairs for most of her professional career, including almost 30 years at Georgetown University's Center for Contemporary Arab Studies. And since 2016, has volunteered as a mentor for We Are Not Numbers, a wonderful, wonderful title, We Are Not Numbers, a writing program for youth in Gaza. And we'll be intrigued to hear how that's going in these very difficult times. In one of her books, she describes herself as having a bicultural and bilingual view of the world that is bewildering, enriching, and beautiful, all at the same time. So Zeina, a warm welcome to you, and get us started with some good poems.
Thank you so much, Mark and Meg, for this introduction and for organizing this program featuring me and my dear Palestinian sisters, Deema, Shehabi, and Sara Abou Rashed. It is such a pleasure to be reading with it in the Poets' Corner series today. So I thought I would start with the backstory of my family. My parents were Palestinian refugees from the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, and as the Palestinians call that event, the Nakba, or the catastrophe. They lost everything and fled to Syria, where my family lived for many years and where I was born later. And then we moved to Lebanon. We immigrated to the United States when I was 10 years old. It was a difficult time in my family's life, and looking back, I know I felt like I lost everything I knew. I've gone back to Lebanon to visit many times, and I've also visited Palestine and Syria many times. So here's a poem about our early years in the US. It's called Immigrant. I grew up eating cheese with bitter olives, sesame and thyme-infused olive oil on warm bread. Names in my family all meant something like lifelong challenges. Zeina, beautiful and good. Bahij, splendid. Fatih, victorious. Samih, forgiving. In my childhood books, words flowed from right to left. Direction didn't matter then. At 10, we traveled east to west against time. I gained 7 hours of youth, lost my compass. In New York, no sea to swallow the sun each day. Foods were sweet in America. People spoke as fast as they walked. Everything was large: washing machines, supermarkets, even bananas and red grapes. We settled in this vast, cold place with neither boots nor a sense of how to be warm. Snowfalls were beautiful and cruel. The freezing air slapped our faces each morning. Inside, there was the smell of garlic and onions on the stove, loud talking over the phone with relatives overseas. My family inhaled and exhaled politics like cigarettes all the time. We blamed the British, the Americans, Arab leaders, Zionists, communists, or a history that was simply unkind. The TV in the background reported news in a language we spoke but did not really understand. All this over a good meal, always, as if the hunger was in our bellies and not in our hearts. The title of my poetry collection, Some Things Never Leave You, comes from a poem I wrote about my mother, who lived actually until age 95. I think often about the life of refugees like my parents and how their refugee stories and experiences age with them, how they live with this pain and this dispossession that they experienced early in their lives. Later in her life, my mother started to hallucinate that someone was trying to take over her home. I couldn't help but think that this connected deeply to her early trauma of becoming a Palestinian refugee and having to flee during war, losing her home, and also just never being able to go back. So this poem is titled, A Refugee Grows Old. She is surprised by the pink cyclamen in the pot, examines the foreign petals upswept as if reaching toward another place. Her own journey seems muted now, details as far away as her childhood in Palestine, where in one scenario she would have lived in the same place until great-grandchildren played around the lemon tree that defined her family's house in scent and space. Where in the real scenario, she fled for her life with a husband and baby, in her pocket a key that rusted over the years. Her memories are like henna on a hand, splendid arabesques fading each day until gone. She has covered so many miles by boat, plane, car, on foot, measured by oceans and clouds, gas fumes, tattered flags left behind, driver's licenses, rental agreements, goodbyes to friends and family, a life unanchored, cleaved. She continues to worry that someone is plotting to take away her home while slowly hunching over a downswept, bent flower, weighed down by hallucinations. She knows some things never leave you, so you have to leave them yourself. Take small steps away, looking for some peace. As an immigrant to the United States, I have often felt like I live in and in between two cultures and two languages, Arabic and English. And although I used to view these spaces as sometimes conflicting, I learned that my experiences as an Arab and an American, and especially as a Palestinian American, have been profoundly enriching to my values and my worldview. And I continue to wonder how one transmits a cultural identity to the next generation. I ask myself, have I given my children a good understanding of the culture I grew up in? What will my grandchildren know and appreciate about our heritage and our family story? Here's a poem that explores these themes. It's titled A Language for Colors. Asfar, she would say, pointing at a yellow tulip. And the color of grass? Akhdar. My young daughter had mastered not only the colors, but also the throaty KH, two letters in English that equal one in Arabic. I would tell her it's the same sound as in khamse, khubz, sabanich, five, bread, spinach, and my favorite name, Khalid, immortal. I once confessed to a friend wistfully that I would not name my son Khalid because Americans couldn't pronounce it. Now I wonder about such wisdom. Even my 8-year-old could constrict her throat muscles the right way to say Khalid, immortal like an ancient olive tree, a flame that never abates, a mother's love. This spring, I saw a patch of double hybrid tulips, asfar tinged with akhdar, and I thought of my daughter's satisfied grin at learning those words thousands of miles away from her grandparents' home in Palestine. Here we are, hybrid Americans, living between two languages and speaking in colors, splendid flowers in a distant field. It has been a difficult 2.5 years for Palestinians, especially those living in Gaza and experiencing the genocide. As a Palestinian, I've alternated between feeling intense grief and rage and despair. Between 72,000 and 75,000 Palestinians, including entire generations, have been killed by Israeli airstrikes and snipers and drones since October 2023. Over 20,000 children are among the victims. The people of Gaza, and especially this generation of children, will likely never truly recover from these horrors. It's been hard to feel hopeful in these times. Recently, I came across a powerful speech by a Palestinian pastor. His name is Reverend Munther Ishaq from the Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem. He's the one who constructed the Christ in the Rubble scene in his church during Christmas, right after the genocide started in the middle of it. In his speech, he said, "We live amid ruins, yet we insist on life. We bury our dead, yet we plant trees." I understood this as a community feeling solidarity in reverencing the lives of ancestors while drawing strength from the act of planting, a motion of faith in life ahead. Reverend Ishaq's words inspired me to write this poem, which is titled, "We Plant Trees in Genocide." The earth knows us. We trust soil, sun, rain. On this same land, bombs land. We bury our dead. We bury our trees. Yet our children gather seeds. They ask us to imagine oranges and pears. We are summoned by the name of cactus fruit, sabr, patience. And fists will open, will plant. Our ancestors at peace in death, the roots, the love we know. They are the earthworms, minerals, oxygen, old branches and stones anchoring trees. In our homeland, we thirst for water and light. We dream of farming, even in hunger. Below, tears and breaths mingle, a helix in the soil. Hopeful tendrils curl toward the sun. So I will end with a short poem that talks about the beauty of Palestine and invokes our Palestinian ancestors and what I think I hear them say to us. It's titled Colors for the Diaspora. Blue-green, watery globe, tugging to a red core. We are a distant comet, white cloud of unburnished rocks, frisking the heavens for an arc to earth, sea, home. Green-brown Palestine, cactus fruit and wild thyme, olive orchards, cypress trees. We travel on your mountain tops, tethered by voices from suitcases and the yaw of blackened keys. Blue-black night, silver stars of ancestors traveling a displaced orbit around a lost sun, repeating, when will we see the colors of our land? When will we land? Thank you.
Thank you, Zeina. So heartfelt, so deeply moving. Yours are the voices we need to hear. Those of us who observe all of this with horror from a distance, to come close, not just to the pain, but to the beauty. Thank you. Our next poet is Deema Shehabi, a Palestinian-American poet born and raised in Kuwait. For Palestinians, hybridity, biculturality, living between places is a way of being. She is a poet, essayist, editor, author of 13 Departures from the Moon, among other books. And her work has appeared in the American Academy of American Poets, Poem of a Day, Los Angeles Review of Books, Massachusetts Review, and on and on. Deema is currently living in Walnut Creek near San Francisco and is very well known in that area for many readings, judging from your website. And we're so glad that you've come to the East Coast and through Poets Corner to the world to bring your voice and your poems. A warm welcome to you, Deema.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate your introduction. And Zeina, that was a beautiful reading. Thank you so much for your words. And I'm so honored to be here this afternoon. And thank you, Meg. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Zeina and Sara, my Palestinian poet sisters. I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm going to make a few remarks prior to my reading. And these remarks are adapted from a Rawi blog I wrote on the anniversary of the genocide, unfortunately. And this just kind of serves as an introduction to a particular poem I wrote. So 12 months after Israel began its annihilation campaign of Palestinians in Gaza, the steadfast, larger-than-life journalist Zeina Azzam asks the sole question of the year. Who are the caretakers of Palestinian earth? As she pans her camera out, she points to the Mediterranean Sea, the palm trees dotting a refugee camp in Khan Yunis, where Palestinian children move their bodies along a breezy lilt in their teacher's voice. The teacher calls, they respond. She calls again, and then children respond, in the long Palestinian breath we call home. The children, like the roving protagonist in one of Layla Alouche's poems, reflect a childhood quintessence, namely, the freedom to give and receive joy. For a moment, the genocide collapses as they raise their autonomous voices to sing, and the land, momentarily languorous, expands with their song. This phenomenological moment, captured by Bessan, also is sacramental because it harkens back to a past, which Zeina invoked, the ancestors, and subsequent future where Palestinian children lived and will live in the luxuriance of childhood. When these unfiltered images echo and ricochet across the planet, I recognize in them a visual periphery for my reason of being. These past few years, I have reconstructed memories of my own childhood, imagining them to be small linked gardens or little Edens extending into adulthood, where I could take my fill of love despite the daily brokenness. The first poem I'm about to read is a sonnet crown, and it examines childhood from the vantage point of a whole yet fragmented daughterhood. This wholeness comes from love, yet the fragmentation is due to geopolitical realities. It also examines how daughters are often inheritors or placeholders of their mother's memories. And it also explores a certain memory of how the land looked to me as a child, how it felt, how it washed and continues to wash over my emotions. So this is Sun Theater Sonnets, and it starts with an epigraph by Agha Shahid Ali, who asks, "For whose world is not in ruins? Whose?" You wrote me from a bed where you could see the mountains' alders brush the asphalt sky, asking, who will empty my last pocket when I'm gone? Once sitting with you on a fountain's edge, I unpinned my large pocket's contents into the basin, where you had plucked veined rose petals, their outline fading into our bleating desires, the still. When you passed, they transferred a ring from your small hand to mine, and I rested my lips in your mouth's smallest pocket. Oh, mother, I tore your letter and hurled my body to the sun-long corridor. Your skin was desolation. Come, hovering angel. Come, hovering angel. Desolation leaves me gray, chain smoking by a quaking aspen tree who moans a throaty sea song when the wind bristles through its taut ribcage. I'm your daughter, holding a place, panting on a roadway where you leave me no sun to pass through. In a morning dream, I dwarf you, removing a seashore from your face. Then your lip moves and you wave your hand. God Almighty, you say, your eyes sewn tightly, though you drag your thick desert voice over zoysia grass, exhuming miniature yellow butterflies and displacing them to a thicket of dusk after the wet. To a thicket of dusk after the wet you pray, don't let me leave this earth broken-willed, O coiler of sorrows, O lost root. Eyes like forest streets, you breathe it in whole, while the mountain pelts you with clouds, semen-scented chestnut tree blossoms, edelweiss. 30 years before, you trailed a messy son to your father's small tomb in Gaza, salt in your nostrils as the bleached white light bound your eyes to the orchard's gray marrow. Decades later, your daughter averts her gaze from the limb-mined earth while her lover says, breathe. The soil coos, rallies her waters. For whose luckiest dead are at peace? Whose? For whose luckiest dead are at peace? Whose? Quarantina, every seaside city juts a neighborhood where it's illegal sells love fruit in the streets? What disguises itself to feed you apricots, mangoes? Afternoons, quails blasphemed against the sun while we ambled underneath rusty green shutters. Do you remember how easily we held hands? How the sky was full of twigs when our skin touched? To open this hour is all you'd say. At the corner store, we hemmed our skirts, donning heels for long embroidered dresses. The seamstress swears she saw you as you were, a field misting the pond, a bent country. A field misting the pond, a bent country made of silver decorating your neck as we picnicked in Annecy's foothills. Blindsided by your beauty, we did not recognize your green breath that colonized longing. Behind you, the Alps misaligned as nightingales, misdirected as sun. When we parted, I tucked my ears with dirt and camouflaged in a pristine suburb in California where the hills come closer after rain and hawks drop lunar mar over Diablo. At Castle Rock, I watch plump bumblebees dive into small blooms. Come morning, we meadow hop, seek poppies. Come morning, we meadow hop, seek poppies. Afternoon, we're livid. Liberation is not fragrant like jasmine, nor woeful like white aster. Our days break on shrinking maps, on poplar-stitched linens, on dying. The children listen intently, their heads swoop down like unwatered geraniums. The news of our distant cities crumbling drapes over them and sequesters their joys, though their eyes still merge with the cool cosmos, like giant redwoods shooting into blue. Who told them all wounds connect to earth? They swing low, hear a murmur in the grass, and the earth sunsets with sage Jeffrey pine. And the earth sunsets with sage Jeffrey pine, though the sky of California blackens as though it were the lost dark before stars. And the girls dread dragging Muhammad home on Salah ad-Din Road while you enclose my round face in your little hands and say, the part that I am that you see could not exist without you. And I find the square photograph of you in my trunk, you're 10 on stage, draped in a red, green, black, and white flag, saying, we will be with who we love. The story is in your eyes, at the tip of your tongue, while I sleep fitfully, and you write me from a bed where you could see. When I came to the US as an 18-year-old, I experienced a profound sense of alienation. Though poetry in English became a home that was more honest than artificial acculturation and assimilation, these words that you're hearing often in the news. For me, writing erupted as a culmination of exile and of being away from a sense of home. Poetry became about finding home in a seemingly impermanent situation, both in the physical and metaphysical sense. This discomfort, however, created the requisites of entering liminal spaces, those transitional spaces that really offer us a slant of what's possible, what's true, and what's veiled outside of mainstream echo chambers. Here's a ghazal that alights into a liminal space. For the refrain, it takes a phrase from one of Kulthum's famous songs, Inta Umri. And she says, Inta Umri means you are my life. And she says, basically, the refrain, she says to him, what I saw before my eyes saw you was a wasted life. So this is ghazal, wasted life. She floats onto a hush stage at odds with wasted life, singing, "What I saw before my eyes saw you was wasted life." What do lavender, basil, and oleander mitigate? His pain or her fingertips on the gauze of wasted life. First of the rescue rains, her wet eyes. Damp lashes excavate dreams, but hide no scars for wasted life. A rosson, my love, doesn't lean into slightest breeze. It welds its roots through river pleats with no pause for wasted life. Anbara scrambles to find her love in a labyrinth of gallows. She sees him in a lagoon of skin and bones, claws of wasted life. A long drive to the airport, dawn light the color of dark iron. Goodbye, father. Distance is always a carcass of wasted life. Don't weep like a woman for what you couldn't defend as a man, she says, as Boabdil withdraws to wasted life. A light not touched by fire is nothing but thirst for belonging, and your stubble sting against my mouth's applause for wasted life. The last couplet is a little suggestive, I'm sorry. Okay, the next poem explores the intersection of environmental degradation due to climate change and the foundational loss of homeland. This is A Summer's Tale with Firebirds. Ghosts of hybrid hummingbirds, iridescent green, lurch forward in the charred trees along the highway. We drive to the lake basin as thousands of acres burn: redwood, white fir, ponderosa pine, giant sequoias, the rhythm of their fall apparent only to firefighters and prison inmates making $2 a day. No sign of the large pebbles, mossy and slippery at the lake's entrance. We barely notice the water's altered eyelids, shallow at the sky's mouth. This time, our entry into the cool current at high altitude leaves you with no air, and our boys gawk at the spectacle of a breathless father. Bruised with sea eyes, they know nothing of checkpoints, nor functionaries with ruby-lined fingers at passport control windows. They have a home beneath a live oak and Siberian elm. Its windows are married to Arbutus marina. Its fences are lined with honeysuckle vines. Our sadness, a penultimate inertia, is more expectant than theirs. In the morning, you crave a lupine kiss, an easel kiss on the nose. In the dream, there are two of me, one through the keyhole and one on your side of the door. Does she wear a nightgown with anemones too, I ask? We gleam open like the lake, our rib cages still intact. Okay, thank you. I'll end over here. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Deema. All wounds connect to earth, and our wounds are what connect us to each other, what open us to truths and beauties we need to discover to become whole ourselves. Our third Palestinian-American poet is Sara Abou Rashed, born and raised in Syria, a common theme. She's a speaker, a poet, and a creator of a one-woman show. I'll describe it as she does. I'd love to see it. A one-woman revolution on war, immigration, language, home, history, and everything in between. She recently completed her MFA at the University of Michigan and is now at Ohio, where she's completing a PhD, working on Palestinian poetry. She may say a word about that. Widely published already, and a former poetry fellow at the Vermont Studio Center. We are grateful to have you with us and welcome you to join in this chorus of voices. Sara.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark and Meg and Deema and Zeina. It's truly an honor to be among you all. I will be reading some poems from my first collection, Theories of Return, which is coming out next month, and I'm really excited. And I have this strange feeling of I cannot wait for everyone to read it, but also, oh shit, they're gonna read it, you know? So here it goes. And yes, I love this theme of the diasporic Palestinian voice. Zaina, every time we talk, I learn something new, such as you were also born in Syria. I'm a third generation Palestinian in exile. My grandparents were exiled in 48 out of Haifa, the city of Haifa. And I am very close to my grandmother, who is my first teacher of poetry. So the words that repeats most across the collection is grandmother. Here it goes. Right. I like to interrogate how the diasporic construct home away from home. So many of my poems you'll see are about this idea of a homeland. And that's the notion that runs across the collection. How do we maintain that? How do we speak of it? How do we inherit it? And what's the role of family and specifically women and matrilineal lineage in keeping up a homeland? For rent. An idea of a homeland, 10,874 kilometers squared. Available immediately. Historic neighborhood, excellent view, mountain, sea, desert, furnished. Wholly aesthetic, customizable borders and foundation. Garden with olive trees, cacti, oranges. You may upgrade street names and transportation routes. All appliances included, plus suburb cuisine, barbed wire, prayer beads, pets and weapons allowed. Comes with clubhouse, pool, newsroom, ownership deed upon signing. What the exiled are. History's blood crumbs, prisoners on the other side of the road, on the other side of the gate, a geographical oxymoron, what the printer omits on its own margins of plain paper, where on a map a named city doesn't exist, only a remembered one. The negative space the art teacher says to trace against a special kind of alibi. I am not where you think I am. I am everywhere. We are everywhere. You think we're not. Another theme I'm really interested in, and one that is difficult to write about, is that of solidarity. How do we speak about shared experiences, about violences that repeat across different communities? How do we kind of weave a language that connects us? So here's one of my favorite poems, an attempt at doing that. Let the naive know how we envy them. Part 1. I hadn't intended to write about massacres this early in the morning, but I am. On Anishinaabe land, the art exhibit reminds me. The tallest wall of the museum, dressed black as a widow, and history in bold letters demands witness. October 15, 1900, the county sheriff forced residents from their homes, and they were burned to the ground. I hadn't intended to write about massacres, but they were burned to the ground, and I am searching for what may speak of them to me. In fine print, a framed poem on the wall whispers, "This is not my grief, but a small hole, lightless." Part 2. A small hole, dilating, fire that one Ramadan night in Tirat Haifa, July 25, 1948, swallowed acres of wheat, and 70 elderly gathered for a meeting, then too slow to escape it. Ask my grandmother who heard it from her grandmother. I was not there, but there is no forgetting what was. barrels of gasoline over golden locks, and what I write from a memory not entirely mine, alone. Part 3. On Anishinaabe land, conditioned air, and what I cannot bear looking away from. Let us dare to shed light then, says the wall. My grandmother withholding the names of the burned and the words of a Jewish woman who once wept with me, ablaze in my ear. When we landed there, we didn't know what we didn't know, she said. Let us dare to shed light then. Let light color us, visible, dark. Lineage. In 1910, a woman in my family didn't recognize her own husband after 7 years of war. When he first saw her outside her door with a girl half her height, he asked, "Lady, do you know someone who lived here, was left with a newborn, and went by this name?" I am her. I want my daughter to say when the apartheid wall falls, I am her or what remains. Over 7 decades away searching, surely someone or something awaits. A rusty keyhole, an olive-skinned doll, a stool in the middle of the road. You can probably tell I'm not a big chatter between poems because I like to think that I say what I want to say best in the form of poems. But as many of you might know, the Nakba, the catastrophe, which pushed almost 800,000 Palestinians outside of Palestine. It is commemorated every May 15th, and it is simultaneously a catastrophic date, but also the date of independence and of the establishment of the State of Israel. So here's a poem I wrote about not wanting any more days of Nakba. No more years of Nakba. Enough with the names and numbers and maps. My grandmother's birthplace is known only to her nose, her first gasp of life in Haifa, the bride of the Mediterranean, known only to her bruised blue eyes. The Carmel mountain after which a cousin of mine is named, to her bare feet, the orchards where she ran at 3 years old full of oranges, known only to her small hands, to the rough lumber that grazed them in her carpenter father's shop, known only to classroom tables and chairs he made to children seated in schools, but soon to be vacant metaphors for loss, known only to headstones, grieving mothers, and what resembles memory, what even memory would let go. More than 70 years later and thousands of miles away, when I ask my grandmother with a tape recorder in hand what she remembers, caressing her new American passport, my grandmother says, "No, I can't visit, though she could." Says, "No, I will not visit, though I plead." Says, "Why don't you understand? I love Palestine," as if it no longer exists. To me, it no longer exists. And this is a tension that I really feel with the diasporic experience, that the home you left no longer exists as it is, and yet it does exist, and the violence only becomes more apparent. Of course, we see that with Gaza, and our hearts break all over again because it's this break in time that some of us are outside and we cannot comprehend the fact that the homeland still exists, but so does the violence and the occupation. So I'd like to read 2 poems, both titled Gaza. Here's the first one. Sitting deeply in grief, in deep grief, and morning and night, the night's nowhere to be seen. Sight is a witness, complicit. From minarets and church pits, we elicit faith, the eve of Christ's birth almost here. Here the earth as it receives, the body's soft and exposed tissues, the heart hard as a rock, the rock no longer figurative. We lost even the figures of our children, the outline of a body, jagged front line, bulldozed memory, our eyes open to the mouth of a weapon. Someone somewhere is playing the violin in the background of violence. Before all of this, we didn't conceive of heaven. We wanted to fly through clouds, not above them. And then the second Gaza poem. It took 5 rounds of IVF to make a child, but 1 missile to unmake him. Tell the world to die a Palestinian is more peace than to live as one. Even then, checkpoints may interrupt your route to heaven. To hell with all of it. This is an umbilical cord more than 70 years long. I am bleeding, and my friend calls to say he's guilty. He brought a child to an open-air prison. The same day, my doctor frowns at the negative tests. Too late, I assure him. I no longer dream of children. I am pregnant with their dreams, intent to carry them to term. Thank you. And then I'll read a short one that's part of a series. I'm really fond of series. I think they allow you to approach the same thing from multiple perspectives and multiple angles. So the reason the collection is called Theories of Return is because all around it and across it, there are different theories that I use to anchor this experience of diaspora and what it's like to approach the concept of return time and again. So here's one of those theories, and this one is titled Direct Reference. Okay, here it is. On my neck, a gold necklace I've inherited of my country whole, metal pressed to the lips of history. In your hands, the same map, renamed and dissipating by the pixel. My cousin says names and pronouns aren't ours, property of others to refer to us. Does a coffin need reminding what it holds? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Does a coffin need reminding what it holds? I am pregnant with their dreams, so many lines, so many threads woven through pain and beauty, through loss and longing, through finding and sharing. Thank you. I'd like to invite the 3 of you into a conversation, and since the sense of living between has been so prominent in all of your poems, between the past and the present, between here and there, between now and then, between you and others. I wonder, Zeina, if you could get us started, because between is such a prominent theme directly in your work. You speak about it, you write about it, you've written some beautiful poems about it, which I found and read with great gain. Help us understand how you understand living between.
I write about it, but I can't say I've come to terms with what I feel about it. But I do feel, growing up in this country, I didn't feel part of this country. But then, I've been here since I was 10 years old. So you get more and more part of things. And then going to visit overseas, I feel very much at home in Palestine. The Arabic I speak is the Palestinian accent. It was the only place in the whole world where I feel like people understand me and I understand them well in Arabic. At the same time, I don't I don't know some of the jokes. I don't know some of the slang, so you feel sort of in between cultures. You feel accepted, and at the same time, I'll just speak for myself. I feel like I'm always looking for that space. Um, when I was younger, it was a negative thing. I felt like, I didn't belong anywhere. But I think as I've gotten older, well, I know as I've gotten older, I've become much more understanding that when you have these, I think of this more of an enriching kind of thing. To know two cultures well is a beautiful thing. And even though I feel that in betweenness, I also feel sort of a wholeness doubled in a way. Um, so and I understand, because I've gone through and keep going through this feeling marginalized as a Palestinian, as an Arab in American society, you know, um, I also feel like I have empathy and understanding of other people in society who are marginalized as well. So it
Mhm.
kind of goes in different places. I don't know, Sarah and Deema, if you feel similarly or differently.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Thank you so much, Zaina. And thanks for that question, Mark, as well. I believe that existing in those in between or liminal spaces is actually, it's a, in some ways, there is pain, but it's also a gift. And as Zaina says, it's enriching in the sense that it gives you a viewpoint that allows you to unveil certain truths, to kind of resist the narrow preoccupation of, nation states in general. It allows you to transcend the border. It allows you to transcend the boundary, and as such, is sort of an opening of sorts in a beautiful way, despite always sort of feeling, oh, do I belong here? Do I not belong here? All those sort of what I will say, like rudimentary questions that one sort of encompasses as a hybrid person. But I believe that it's immensely like eventually you understand that you're whole because you're able to stand in two places and birth a story that is your own. And I believe it was Sarah and Zen, I'm not sure. I believe it was Edward Said said that all great American literature is literature of immigrants. And I think there's truth to that. Um, so yeah, so I just wanted to, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that, Sarah. But yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Mm.
No, that's an excellent conversation to have because this year was really special for me. I came to the US when I was 13 and I am now 26. So exactly half of my life has been in the Middle East, half of it here. And I'm thinking very intently about what does that mean? And soon I will start to accumulate more years here than what I came with. So it's a very difficult thing. But I will say language definitely allows us to anchor roots. I'm glad, Zaina, that you feel at home when you go back. I have this fear that if and when I go back or visit Arab countries, that I'll feel differently, that maybe I'm Arab here in the US, but I will be American there. Only because you start to be identified by the differences and, um, it's hard to fit in anywhere, frankly. And I've had people say, "Oh, I feel like I didn't belong and I've been here my entire life." So maybe you don't need to have had a diaspora and an exile to also be pushed to the side in some ways. But I agree with Dima. It's also a generative and a peaceful place to arrive once you make peace with the fact that you may never be at home, that there is no one home that one can belong to. It's a state of being, and it's constantly contingent on different factors. Mm.
As I listen to the three of you speak, and reading things that you've written, it strikes me that each of you deserve to be angry and bitter. And I'm sure there's anger and there's bitterness. There is in the way that you look at what's happened, what's happening now, what presumably sadly will happen in the future. But you bring resources of seeing and of opening the world, your world, the world that you have known as immigrants and as people who've found their roots, their new roots here without losing somehow the old roots. So what's for you, what's been the kind of source of that strength, of that overcoming sheer bitterness?
Mm.
Hard question, I know.
It's very hard. I feel like for me, trying to channel that bitterness or the rage, as I mentioned earlier, I feel a lot of rage, I feel a lot of grief, I feel a lot of despair. It's been hard, for a long time, especially during the genocide in Gaza. And now, it's moving into the West Bank and moving into Lebanon and, of course, Iran. So these these wars are just so hard to understand and really take in. I heard somebody talking about the idea of witnessing, and talking about poetry of witness. And I start thinking, maybe we're not just witnessing because we are also feeling everything that's happening. Anyway, to me, I try to channel these feelings into, well, certainly into expressing myself in poetry, but also in educating. I've been in the education field and educating about the Arab world, about Islam, about Palestine all my life. And to me, that's the positive spin to all of this, trying to make something out of it and also activism. I mean, I think we've all been very active in terms of, you know, ceasefire, genocide, all that stuff. It's putting our energy into something to make change.
Mm.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Like, I mean, basically, for me, I think it's really was sort of the idea, like, yes, there were moments when I would say, it's not bitterness, but I would reach a sense of, wow, it's beyond despair. It's a sense of like, there's no international law for us. There's no forms of protection. There's just, so it is more like rage, not bitterness, I would say, more rage. Like, how could this be? But at the same time, I would again take cues from my childhood, again, remembering like my childhood as these rooms full of love. And that was like kept me buoyant throughout this whole genocide. So childhood keeping me buoyant, the love from my parents, the love from actually people in Gaza itself is incredible. Like people don't, the Gazans give you strength. It's incredible. Like despite what they're going through, they're always saying this is what we have, this is what this they're full, they are full. They're living on the pulse of fullness, unlike all of us here in the West. So there's that feeling of just being in awe of them. My own family who was in Gaza was always saying, "We're living through you." There's just so much strength coming from them. So, and also just finally, just one more. I don't think myself as a mother, I could have rage, but I could never be bitter because I have children and I'm raising them. And so that just gives me so much like buoyancy to continue. Mm.
That's lovely, Deema.
Thank
Deema, that's
Thank
great.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, I'll say rage is powerful and rage is needed and it comes in bursts, but it's not sustainable. And someone told me, this tenderness and this grace, if we lose it, it's our loss. And truly, no one cares for us more than we can care for us. So I always try to hold on to that and to come back to the humanity of us. And being Palestinian to me is about embracing simultaneity, right? We're seeing absolute destruction and genocide in Gaza, but people still find room to play, to create a toy, to get married, to find a way to insist on life amidst death. And that's something that we've been doing for the past 77 years. It's not new, or else we would have vanished a long time ago. So to kind of embrace the full arc of emotion, to be angry and to be bitter and to protest and to write and to do all of these things, but then at the end of the night find that humanity that allows us to wake up again. That's really important. And on the other hand, I see that there's pressure to be perfect victims of a certain kind or acceptable victims who are either angry or crazy or weak, but also maintaining agency, maintaining power, um, speaking from positions of ownership rather than um, kind of submission. That's also really important.
It makes me think about, how people are always talking about the people of Gaza as resilient. I really don't like to use that word anymore. I mean, they've been through so much. And like you said, Deema, this perfect, or maybe Sarah, being the perfect victims, this is what is expected of Palestinians now, we take it and we take it. But this also makes me want to just mention something. You mentioned it, Mark, in the introduction about We Are Not Numbers, which is this amazing program in Gaza for young people. They're mostly college age who are writing either essays or poems, and the organization pairs them with mentors here in the US and some in Europe as well. And so we work with them back and forth until they craft the piece that they want, and edited, and then it's published on the website. So it's wearenotnumbers.org, and I've been working with them since 2016, and this has been such an honor to meet all these amazing young people from Gaza, because it's mostly Gazans who are writing in this program. And many more are right now writing poetry. So I've been working with the poets, and it's been lovely.
Lovely. I'd like to invite people to put questions in the chat if they have them at this point. And we do have a request from Carl Little to ask one of you perhaps to read a poem in Arabic.
Mm.
Deema and Sarah, do you write in Arabic also?
I don't know. Yeah.
I do sometimes. So I started writing when I was 6, and I wrote in Arabic for a long time. And then when I came here at 13, I did not speak any English. And the thing that taught me English was truly poetry. I joined the poetry club, and I would write these, crazy poems with mispronunciations and mislanguage. But the poetic sense was the same. And I felt like even if I had moved to France or to the Netherlands or whatever the new language would be, I would still be the same person and the same poet that I am. But now, yeah, that's a question I received about why is your first collection in English, right? When your first language is Arabic. And are the poems born translated, if that's a thing? Maybe because they're born in Arabic. They're born as a result of conversations with family and feelings that I've definitely had in Arabic, but I found the language for them in English. Yeah, so maybe language is another theme and thing to talk about with Deema and Zeina.
I think that's interesting, what you're saying about the poem existing in Arabic in a sort of sensibility kind of way, right? Or in your embrace of certain things. This has been kind of a subject in a conversation with a lot of Arab American writers in the sense that are we writing from the mother tongue? Though, despite writing in English. So there are all these questions that we contend with constantly, but I definitely think we do write from from the mother tongue, at least in a sensibility kind of way. Just, and so are we in translation as well? Can we portray ourselves accurately if we are still writing from the mother tongue? That's a question that we contend with all the time.
Wow, Deema, are we in translation? That makes me stop in translation ourselves. Actually, I have a poem in Arabic if you'd like me to read it. But Sarah, do you have something that you would like to read?
Go for it, and then I'll see if I.
I mean, I only have a few, but this one, um, it's called My Suitcase, My Beloved Companion. I'll read it in English first, so you'll know what you're gonna hear. Uh, it's I wrote it on an airplane coming back from Palestine to the US. My suitcase, my beloved companion, you carry the scent of wild thyme and the fruit of the silver green olive tree and the nightingale's song. My suitcase, my beloved, my constant companion, you gird me in the airplane between stars and darkness. Facing me is the map that gives clarity to my life. This arrow in a long trajectory arcs from my homeland to my exile. It lengthens and shortens as if breathing the distance between Palestine and America, America and Palestine. My suitcase, my love, we are allies on this perpetual journey. You transport the scent of za'atar that resists the gas fumes in this metal cage, and I inhale both presence and absence.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
حقيبتي حبيبتي تحملين رائحة الزعتر البري وثمر شجرة الزيتون الفضية الخضراء وأغنية العندليب. حقيبتي حبيبتي تسنديني في الطائرة بين النجوم والظلام أمامي الخريطة التي توضح حياتي. هذا سهم في مسار طويل مخوصا من وطني إلى غربتي يتقاصر ويتطاول كأنه يتنفس المسافة بين فلسطين وأمريكا، أمريكا وفلسطين. حقيبتي حبيبتي تنقلين رائحة الزعتر التي تعاكس دخان البنزين في هذا القفص المعدني وأنا أتنشق الحضور والغياب.
Beautiful. كتير حلو بالعربي. It's beautiful in Arabic actually.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I actually wrote it in Arabic and then I
And then you
translated it.
translate it, yeah.
Ah, I was wondering that.
Yeah. I was in the airplane, looking at that map that with the arrow. It was
Right.
like going back. How you sort of fixate on those arrows.
That's funny. I wonder if I could, I'm sorry, I don't remember which one of you said it, a line, living on the pulse of fullness. I think it was you, Zeina, talking about people in Gaza, they live on the pulse of fullness,
I think
which
actually
is
it was,
so,
yeah,
sorry,
sorry. I think it wasn't me. I think it was Deema. I
was
don't
it Deema?
Yeah, but it's all good.
Oh,
Yeah,
Xana.
go
sorry.
ahead.
It's all
So,
good.
but I'm so moved by that and the sense thinking about fullness in such a different way. I mean, obviously these are people who are being herded like animals. Actually, we wouldn't treat animals this poorly. I don't think.
Mhm.
There would be complaints about it. But this sense of fullness, can you say a word more about that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's hard, but what I mean by that is that they're living so close to the cusp of life and death, right? So that is a fullness in and of itself. There's a great Moroccan Muslim Sufi philosopher, Taha Abdul Rahman, who said, Palestinians live on a cosmic reality, and this is very metaphysical. But what I mean, and that's exactly what I mean. There's a sense of their decisions, they're living life in a way, not with freedom, not with but they live to get married, to like have you even ever heard their like if you listen to their conversations with one another, there's so much love despite the daily brokenness. And that's what I mean by fullness. Um they're not tied to these instruments of power or instruments of dehumanization. They're tied to life. And that's something that no one can take away from them, even despite them being genocided. That's something they have.
Right.
Beautiful.
There's a question in the chat from
Thank you.
Anita. she's saying she taught creative writing at the University of Pittsburgh and is retired and wondering how to connect to the program for young writers and does she have to know Arabic to do that?
You do not have to know Arabic. Everybody's writing in English, actually, and having things published in English. That's the whole idea, is they're sending their stories to the world. And just go to wearenotnumbers.org and you can get all the information there.
Thank you.
I'll type that out if you like.
And they have a new anthology of writing from We Are Not
Yes, there is a new anthology. It was published in Britain and now it's published here in the US by Interlink Books. And so it's available. It's beautiful. All the writings are really beautiful.
How long have you been involved in the program, Zeina?
Since 2016.
So
So
long.
pretty
Yeah.
close to the beginning. It started, I think, in 2015. So I came on early and I did the essays for many, many years and then started doing the poetry. And I'm actually the poetry editor for the organization.
Oh, amazing.
It's just so, I mean, what an honor for me and how meaningful, really.
Wonderful. What a sign of hope to call
Yes.
forth art, creative work from places where many of us might not expect to even hear a word, but then to hear a powerful word, a beautiful word. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, I
And
hope that there
a
might
lot
be
of stuff,
others.
I just want to say that they're published online, so you don't have to buy the book. You can actually just read everything online, but the book is just a compilation of the first 10 years, basically.
Nice.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Mark.
No.
Well, we do have a request, and I was wondering if Sarah has a poem she'd like to read in Arabic.
Sure. Okay, I've in the time that we spent, I found one poem that would read really nicely in Arabic. I will also read the English translation first, just to give you context about what this is. And this is inspired by my friend who frequently goes to the West Bank and has to experience the checkpoint where she's allowed or not allowed to enter. She was telling me about that, and I wrote this poem. May God give you health. 7 hours at the border crossing for not even a stamp, only the possibility of leaving. We fabricate illnesses to exist, even then, learn to choose what we wouldn't mind having wished upon ourselves. Only 26 and cancer, the officer interrogates. She nods, her brother nods, and everyone in the room hears what wasn't spoken, the line between truth and despair, the wrong curve of a smile, between whole truth and half, an occupation. When he hands back the passport, the officer is someone else. Speedy recovery, he says, as if in another lifetime it saddened him to hear the terrible news. Unaware, her brother responds the way his mother tongue taught him to. May God give you health. Sweet prayer. Years later, he still curses himself for. Wow. And this is the Arabic. دعوة في غير مكانها. 7 ساعات من الانتظار على الحدود لا لختم خروج مؤكد بل لاحتمالية عبور ضئيلة. بتنا نزيف أمراضا لنحيا بين الموت ولأنه يقال أن أقدارنا تؤخذ من أفواهنا حذرين نحن أن لا نتفوه بما لا نقدر على تحمله. 26 عاما ومريضة سرطان استجوبها الضابط. هزت رأسها وهز رأسه أخوها هو الآخر. جميع من في غرفة الانتظار سمع ما لم يقال. فالحد الفاصل بين الحقيقة واليأس ابتسامة صفراء وبين كامل الحقيقة ونصفها احتلال. عندما أعاد جواز السفر لها كان الضابط بمثابة شخص آخر. قال لها أتمنى لك الشفاء العاجل وكأنه حزن لمرضها في حياة أخرى. دون تفكير أجاب أخاها كما علمتاه أمه ولغته. بيعطيك العافية. دعاء عذب لا يزال يلعن نفسه لقوله بعد سنوات مضت. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful reading, beautiful poem, both in Arabic and in English.
Thank you.
It's so interesting that I'm a translator as well. I live between languages, but I think we all live between languages these days, or should.
Mhm.
And what we discover, isn't it true that when we move across that space between one language and another, between one culture and another, it's not just that we become changed. We also shift something in the world in a positive sense. We widen, we diminish the borders and widen the inclusion somehow. Is that the way you experience it?
I can say I would say absolutely. Yes, of course. We widen the world, we bring our expansive worldview, kind of going back to Dima's liminal space. We hold the two worlds together. Someone said I'm more the hyphen than I am what's on either side, just this image of being a connector and a bridge and an ambassador and an inherent kind of representative of multiple worlds and multiple communities, of course. But there are moments of frustration, like translation never being adequate enough, wanting to relay an experience that has no language in a different tongue. So occasionally that too is really hard.
I find too when I'm translating from German that sometimes it's the simplest words that are the most impossible to translate because they carry so much that you can't put into language. There's no way to put it into language. The way words carry worlds of experience in a way.
Yeah, that's a great point, I think. The idea also that language carries elusive riches, which the reader may or may not be privy to. So there's that challenge, right? What are these elusive riches that but it's definitely a bridge and people can really enter it and go past. Definitely. Yeah. That's beautifully put. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think as a translator, Mark, it must feel, I mean, I know when I've translated things, I feel like whatever I translate is actually becomes its own a different thing.
Yeah.
I don't think you can ever be completely faithful to the original language. You're creating something new.
Yeah.
It's an attempt, right, to translate between two
Yeah.
languages and cultures.
And trying to create an experience in another language that you have in the first language, right? In the sound, as much as anything, the rhythms, not just the meaning. The meaning is so difficult to pass from one language to another.
And
Look, it's such a
Rilke,
rich. Sorry, go ahead,
No
Jen.
less, Rilke with
Yeah, right. Impossible.
spiritual,
Yeah, bit
volcanic
crazy.
sense of, yeah. So
Mm,
that's
yeah.
very admirable for sure.
Yeah, I've
Amazing.
been just finishing translating the elegies, and in some ways, the elegies end with praise, which is in some people might find that counterintuitive, but in your readings today, you moved from pain to praise, from sorrow to delight to celebration in so many beautiful moments. I wonder if each of you could choose one more poem to share with us before we close. Perhaps a poem that touches on a word that you'd like to leave us with as we come to the close of this conversation with you.
Mhm. I'd love to just read a poem by a poet from Gaza who passed away. Her name was Heba Abu Nada, and she was a novelist, poet, and educator from Gaza, and she wrote this poem 10 days before her death on October 20th. This poem is translated by the brilliant Huda Fakhruddin. And so this poem is called this, and she's just this masterful poet, and she sort of stands on the threshold of what Huda Fakhruddin says, ruins, but invites the audience to come in and and see this regeneration on the ruins. It's something really masterful. This is called Not Just Passing by Hiba Abu Nada. Yesterday, a star said to the little light in my heart, "We are not just transients passing. Do not die. Beneath this glow, some wanderers go on walking. You were first created out of love, so carry nothing but love to those who are trembling. One day, all gardens sprouted from our names, from what remained of heart's yearning. And since it came of age, this ancient language has taught us how to heal others with our longing, how to be a heavenly scent to relax their tightening lungs, a welcome sigh, a gasp of oxygen. Softly, we pass over wounds like purposeful gauze, a hint of relief, an aspirin. Oh, little light in me, don't die, even if all the galaxies of the world close in. Oh, little light in me, say, enter my heart in peace. All of you, come in. That was Hiba, masterful poet from Gaza. Yeah.
So beautiful. And you read it beautifully, Deema. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Abby.
Thank you.
Sarah, Zeina, one more poem.
I feel like I've read my second poem or last poem, but Sarah, go ahead.
Okay, sure. Well, Palestinian Land Day is coming up, so I'd like to read a poem about that. And it also touches on language and naming and many things we discussed. Land Day. Every March 30th, we Palestinians everywhere like to remind you it's our land day. In Arabic, we say Yawm al-Ard, and our Ard stands for country, land, earth, ground, even floor. So every March 30th, we disagree amongst ourselves which of these many words we intend. The irony is not lost on us. We know what we possess and what we do not. No name is adequate measure for memory. In 1976, when the Israeli government announced yet another expansion, we fought back. I was not there, but I imagine we threw rocks at first, then screams from the deepest alleys of our throats, then our rough and brown hands, and eventually our whole selves. When nothing could be changed, we named this day of protest after the very thing we lost, the Ard. Since then, we greet each other in remembrance and say, Yawm al-Ard ma fi Ard. It's the day of the land and there is no land. Or we say, Salamun ala ardin ma arafat yawman salam. May peace be upon a land that never once knew peace.
Mm.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Sarah, for your poem.
So I do have a poem if you'd like one more, because I really like this concept and I'd love to leave you with it. It's the word khair in Arabic. Excuse me. Khair means goodness. And actually the poem speaks for itself. I don't need to say more than that. From the time farmers rise with the sun until night descends, there is talk of it. Songs and Quranic verses about khair, morning of khair, evening of khair. There's no getting around goodness. Tusbahi ala khair, my mother would wish me as she kissed my forehead at bedtime. May you wake up to goodness. Later, I learned to respond, Inti min ahlo, may you be part of its family, the family of khair. Even watching TV, as we waited for bad news from Gaza, she would admonish, Khair inshallah, goodness, God willing. No matter the misfortune, she was sure that Allah would eventually bring khair to Palestine. Maybe it all started with her neighbors in Jaffa, the family whose name was Khair Allah, God's goodness. From kindness to comity, their ancestors packed so much in this name. It was a hedge against hardship, an incantation in their bones, Palestine's bones, where Khair resides from morning till night, in a mother's kiss at bedtime, deep in a farmer's land. Sorry about that. Deep in a farmer's land. There the roots of Khair multiply in the earth, goodness bristling.
Oh
Thank you.
my, these are
A
so
beautiful place to
beautiful.
pause, goodness bristling. You've blessed us and enriched us and invited us into the beauty of your lives, the beauty of the Palestinian peoples, and the beauty of this time to share together. So my heartfelt thanks to you, Zeina, to Deema, to Sara. And Sara, a new book coming out, Theories of Return. We look forward to that. Congratulations. And Meg, thank you for hosting this program, for inviting us to be part of Poets Corner. I'll turn it back to you, Meg.
Oh, thank you all for being here. Just such a rich and warm and inviting program. And I just want to leave with that poetry in my ears. So I don't want to say too much more, except a really heartfelt thank you to all of you and to all of those who came to listen today. Thank you.
Thank you all as well. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for inviting us.
Thank you.
Having
I
us.
appreciate this so much. Thank
Zena.